From its lofty perch in a nutmeg tree, the Pawi sees another sunrise. She doesn't know if she'll see another. The Pawi is one of the world's most endangered bird species. Few people have ever seen it in its natural habitat in the rainforest of northeastern Trinidad. The Pawi is a large black turkey-like bird. Many of its wing feathers are white-tipped, often forming a checkered-like pattern on the wing. Slender black feathers, edged with white, make up its crown. The bird has a light blue face, black beak, brilliant blue wattle extending from its throat, and red feet.
The Pawi are usually seen in small groups or individually, and usually when feeding. Their diet consists of fruits, seeds, leaves and flowers of forest species, as well as some domestic crop species that may have been introduced into their habitat.
Pawi is important to the national park and Grand River on a whole because one, it's one of the island's endemic birds. It's on the endangered species list, and Grand River is one of the easiest viewing points on the island for that bird.
The Pawi is famous for being the largest fruit-eating bird in Trinidad and Tobago. This allows for the Pawi to disperse much larger seeds than other birds.
Seed dispersal by Pawi has been decreasing because the population itself has been decreasing. This may cause threats to the health of our local forests. The researchers have found that the Pawi population has decreased significantly from thousands of birds to less than 200 worldwide.
The Pawi is also a main attraction for ecotourism in the Matura National Park. The bird's naturally curious and social nature has become the root of its misfortune, as it is easily preyed upon by hunters. They also have a tendency to avoid long flights and therefore hardly evade nearby hunters. Man's intervention has also threatened the bird's habitat. The clearing of forest land for timber, agriculture and housing means less place for the Pawi to hide, feed and care for its young.
Pawi usually lay 2 to 3 eggs per clutch. However, not all of these eggs will make it to adulthood. And the slow growth rate of the species also leads to concern for the recovery of the species.
The Pawi also has natural enemies, and young hatchlings who have not yet left the forest floor are easy targets for a hungry ocelot, tyra, snakes, or even hunting dogs. These activities continue to jeopardize the future of these unique birds and could result in the extinction of a species from the planet. The Pawi was designated as an environmentally sensitive species by the EMA in 2005. It is also protected under the Conservation of Wildlife Act. In addition to protecting the species through designation, the EMA has also designated the Pawi's main home range in the Matura National Park as an environmentally sensitive area. According to the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. The Forestry Division is one of the key agencies responsible for enforcing laws that protect the threatened species. The Pawi is also the focal point for a number of scientific research projects. These studies are aimed at gaining a complete understanding of this threatened species.
There's a lot we need to learn about the Pawi. Researchers are still trying to find out more about its habitat preferences, its breeding biology, its diet, the health of the species, and its general behavior.
I will say, dare to say, it's one of our national treasures. It's something that we need to protect and conserve. You used to get them all over now. You get them mainly in the northern or the northeast range of Trinidad. Well, my group, together with other NGOs such as Brasoseco, group outside Matura, we do a lot of environment work and protection with Pawi with other state agencies such as EMA to help protect and conserve a wonderful species like this in order for the youths and them to benefit and know what this animal is about.
Public education strategies target both children and adults and include informative and interactive programs such as workshops and presentations, CDs, signs, posters, brochures, anything that can get the information across to the public.
For over 100 years, the Pawi has survived the countless natural and man-made threats, and now it faces some of its darkest days. But man also holds the key to its future. Awareness, education, and respect for this environmentally sensitive species will ensure many more sunrises for her and her family. The Matura National Park is the largest protected area in Trinidad and Tobago. With an area of over 9,000 hectares, it measures about 1/3 the area of Tobago. This forest was designated an environmentally sensitive area by the Environmental Management Authority in 2004, and it is located at the eastern end of Trinidad's northern range.
The Matura National Park is located at the eastern part of the Matura Forest Reserve. Part of it is abandoned cocoa and coffee estate. And there are about 5% within the park, there are people who live there. Right? People on their private property, right? Private land. That's where the cocoa and coffee estates are made up of. So there are people who live within the park, right? That's the private land section. But most of it is evergreen forest. And I believe it's the only remaining piece of green forest within Trinidad and Tobago.
The Matura National Park, one of the richness which makes this park unique in Trinidad and Tobago is one, there's a river-sea relationship between the Salibi River and the Rio Seco River. The uniqueness itself of the unique landscape, we have the Rio Seco Sulphur Spring, the Rio Seco Waterfall, and most significantly the Rio Seco Rock Bridge formation. The flora component of the park itself is specified by its rich montane forest, which is about 3,000 hectares, and we have species such as the water care inside there. We have the Mora excelsa, crapo, we have seret. These form some of the predominant flora species we have there, but we also have the rich endemism of species of fauna inside there as well. The Matura National Park is home to our endemic Pawi. We have our endangered ocelot. Plus, there has been recent sighting of the river otter within parts of the Matura National Park itself.
Within the national park, you will find all of the existing species of fauna in Trinidad. That's unique because you have an opportunity to see a guti, deer, lap, wild hog, ocelots, you name it. That's the only area that you can probably accurately see these animals. It has a unique range of flora. It has pristine, untouched rivers, and it's accessible. It's accessible, especially on the Grand River side. Grand River is one of the two gateways to the park, and because of that, it attracts a lot of eco-tourists, both national and international.
Well, agricultural purposes, farmers there who have their estate, who still see about their cocoa, coffee estate, banana, plantain, citrus, you just name it. Farming in general.
The park is surrounded by 14 coastal communities, including Matura, Balandra, Grand River, and Matlot. The livelihoods of the people who live here depend partially on the resources of this protected area. One of the main objectives of safeguarding this area is to protect critical wildlife habitats and control the threat of illegal hunting throughout the park. According to the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. Forest fires are also a threat to the species that inhabit this park. Whether man-made or natural in origin, a wayward spark has the potential to turn parts of this pristine forest into a spiral of smoke.
The Forestry Division of the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources is responsible for the day-to-day management of the Matura National Park. All activities within the park is vested in the authority of the National Park section of the Forestry Division.
In 2004, a stakeholder management committee was set up by the EMA to oversee the management of the park. This continues to be done through meetings with main agencies, community-based organizations, and non-governmental organizations involved in the area.
The Matura National Park presently is managed by the Forestry Division in collaboration with communities. Communities do voluntary patrols. On those patrols you will remove litter on anything that's not natural to the park. Forestry Patrol has the oversight in terms of the enforcement. So it's a collaborative effort between community and state. And the community really is the one who is in there because the park is within their environs.
There is also a need to promote and facilitate nature-based tourism and to better understand the park's ecology from a scientific perspective. Currently, scientists are studying over 200 species of trees and vines found in the forest and their relation to species on the South American mainland. The EMA plays an important role in public education and awareness of the Matura National Park. These strategies take the form of lectures, interviews, media releases, signage, posters, and special publications. Some programs are also specially targeted to children and young adults.
Yes, please! Yes, please! Clean a space! Clean a space! Don't litter! Don't litter!
We attract every year to this community alone persons from over 100 international destinations who come to see turtles, just turtles. These are ecotourists. And what we have observed is that one of the things they inquire, what else can we do while we're here? Are there any interesting things we can see? These are people coming from very polluted environments, no fresh air. Relatively, they have never experienced a clean running river where they live.
The Matura National Park is a potential gold mine for ecotourism.
If we can train and develop ecotourism, if we can take the community people and get them trained as guides to take people into the park to observe the wildlife, to bask in the beautiful rivers and waterfalls, and they get paid for their service, what you will find happening is that the park, with its abundance of sustainable income opportunities, would create livelihoods for the communities and at the same time lend to the protection and better management of the park.
Securing its long-term survival rests on our intervention through sharing knowledge about the area, reporting illegal activities, and through sustainable management. The Matura National Park is an international treasure, one that we must manage responsibly to ensure its continued existence for generations to come. Once thought to be mermaids by shipwrecked sailors, the West Indian manatee is also known as the sea cow. Unlike the mermaid though, the manatee has a fusiform body, meaning that it is tapered at both the head and tail, with no obvious neck crease. Declining numbers of the West Indian manatee population caused it to be designated by the EMA as an environmentally sensitive species in 2005.
So there are two subspecies of the West Indian manatee. There's the Florida manatee and the Antillean manatee. The Antillean manatee is found in Trinidad, in the Nariva Swamp in Trinidad's waters. In the mouth, you have what are known as marching molars, so they're continuously replaced. The nostrils have two little plugs so that during diving, these plugs come and seal the respiratory passages, the nasal passages, so that the animal stays down and water does not enter the tract. So it's able to dive and stay, have a nice seal on the nostrils. Eyes are fairly small. There are no ears that you can visibly see, but they are there. They have 2 pectoral flippers. The skin itself is it's on the rougher side really. It gets a little smoother as the animal gets older. It can be somewhat wrinkled, especially in the younger animal. They also have a caudal flipper, and this end of the body is very strong. So when we're handling the animals, we tend to try and avoid the hind end. It's a very powerful muscles at the back, so this can actually deliver a very strong blow, and that can damage an individual pretty badly.
A herbivore, a full-grown adult manatee can be up to 3 meters long. Newborn calves range from about 80 to 160 centimeters long, and they can weigh about 30 kilograms.
Manatees they have a gestation period of just over a year, so roughly 13 months, and the mothers or the dam would stay with their calf, or the calf would stay with the dam for up to 2 years, so that their reproductive cycle can run anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So that is also in a way a threat to population expansion, because they have such a long intercalving interval. So between one calf and another, it could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years.
Historically, manatees were found on the eastern and southern coastal swamps, rivers, bays, and other waterways in Trinidad. The West Indian manatee was once also found in Tobago and frequented the Bucco Reef Lagoon. Now, the main habitat of the West Indian manatee population is the Nariva Swamp, which itself is an environmentally sensitive area located on the east coast of Trinidad.
In general, they don't congregate, so you would not find them in large groups. They tend to be more solitary. They would come together for breeding purposes, and then you'd find them roaming separately, grazing in shallow waters, usually about 6 feet or so, fairly shallow waters.
The West Indian manatee is the largest wild mammal inhabiting the rivers and wetland areas of the east coast of Trinidad. According to the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. In addition to the environmentally sensitive species rules, the manatee is also protected under the Conservation of Wildlife Act. This act prohibits the hunting of the species and possession of any part of it. The decline of the manatee population can be directly linked to poaching. This illegal activity brought the manatee to the brink of extinction locally, and the mammal has since been recorded under the Red List of Threatened Species by the International Union for Conservation of Nature as a vulnerable species.
Our population of manatees locally is very small, if you can call it a population at all really. It's estimated to be just about 25 to 30 animals. So we are really dealing with animals that we're really dealing with a situation where we have very few animals left, and the population rebound could be a challenge.
Hunting is not the only threat the manatee faces. Long-term development plans have a serious impact on the hydrology and ecology of the Nariva area.
Manatees actually have no natural predators. So interestingly enough, their major threats come from environmental destruction, habitat pollution, habitat destruction, with our manatees pretty much being localized to the Nariva Swamp and surrounding rivers and tributaries. We're essentially dealing with anything that destroys the mangroves, pollutes the waters of the rivers and the swamp itself, dredging, chemical pollution, so runoff from agricultural sites that may be nearby certainly would pose a threat.
Conservation and management are critical to the survival of the West Indian manatee. This is being done through 3 major channels: protecting the manatee's habitat, monitoring the status of the species, and creating a greater public awareness of the species. In terms of the manatee's habitat, there is a need to identify the range of the animal and develop specific management protocols for that area. The manatee's habitat should be continuously monitored, coupled with improved enforcement of existing legislation. Local communities need to be trained in sustainable livelihoods, and conservation efforts must be made a priority.
Here at the University of the West Indies School of Veterinary Medicine, we have started that process. We have so far started looking at fecal parasitological analyses to kind of get an idea of what type of gastrointestinal parasites, so parasites of the digestive tract, what sort of parasite might be in our local population. We would like to get to a point where we could actually physically handle the manatees and get blood samples, do genetic testing.
Therefore, there is a need to create sanctuaries for them and promote information sharing at both the national and regional levels. Protection of this species will undoubtedly involve a greater level of regional conservation efforts and local law enforcement. Conservation initiatives are being fueled by public education and awareness campaigns involving both state and NGO groups. Members of local communities are being trained in manatee research, and it is hoped that they too will assist in promoting manatee ecotourism. Awareness of wetland conservation is also critical to the survival of the West Indian manatee and other threatened species in Trinidad and Tobago. You have the power to report sightings of illegal practices, discourage hunting of these creatures and habitat destruction, and avoid pollution. Together, we can safeguard the life of this animal for many years to come. The Nariva Swamp is the largest, most diverse wetland ecosystem in Trinidad and Tobago. It is located on the east coast of Trinidad and, at 44 square miles, is slightly larger than the Matura National Park. The swamp was designated an environmentally sensitive area by the Environmental Management Authority in 2006.
The area is the home to a number of sensitive plants and animals, including threatened mammals and reptiles. It is the main habitat for the West Indian manatee, which is an AMA designated environment sensitive species.
One can also find, deep within the swamp, the once locally extinct blue and gold macaw, which was recently reintroduced into the wild after a successful breed and release program, and one of the world's longest snakes, the green anaconda.
There is a wide variety of species located into the Nariva Swamp, which range from district forests, district vegetation, swamp forests, and savanna grasses.
There is a wide variety of biodiversity within the swamp, such as the wild shatine, the water immortal, the hog plum, and for example, our group is presently involved in nursery production, which we provide the plants to supply for our groups, so that when we're going into the swamp, they have their plants to reforest the area.
4 main types of vegetative communities exist here. Researchers have recorded 4 types of marsh forest that occupy different areas within the swamp. The littoral woodland is characterized by species such as sea grape and tropical or sea almond. Most of this vegetation was removed at the eastern end of the swamp, which was used for cultivation of watermelon and vegetable crops. In addition to the wetland plant communities previously mentioned, the Nariva Swamp contains evergreen seasonal forest. This is composed of trees such as crapperwood, maho, silk cotton, and balata. Lianas, epiphytes, and palms are also typical within the understory of the forest. The 4th type of vegetative community found in this ESA is the swamp forest. This community is composed of mangle, swampwood, and palm swamp forests. Mangroves make up the majority of this community and are restricted to the eastern side of the swamp. The palm swamp communities are made up of species such as the royal or palmiste palm and the Moorish palm, which exist mainly in the southern half of the swamp. freshwater swampwood communities occur inland from the mangrove forest and feature swamp bloodwood, wild nutmeg, yellow mang, and swamp immortelle. These forests are home to a significant population of local fauna. However, after thriving for centuries, the swamp's ecosystems are under threat from human activities. Small-scale vegetable farmers also followed suit and started planting in prohibited areas.
In the 1980s, there were illegal rice farming that affected the plants and animals in the swamp and changed the water courses drastically.
These land clearing activities removed vital habitat for the swamp's many species. In addition, there was a negative impact on the movement, distribution, and quality of water throughout the entire ecosystem. The significance of the Nariva Swamp and its biodiversity has been recognized for many years. In 1968, parts of it were declared a game sanctuary and a forest reserve, and it was recorded as a Ramsar site in 1993 as a wetland of international importance. Additionally, in accordance with the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. These milestones set the pace for the conservation actions that led to the swamp being designated as an ESA in 2006.
The EMA is currently coordinating with the University of the West Indies, the Forestry Division, and various community-based organizations, including the Plumita Beach Farmers Group, to execute the Nariva Swamp Restoration Project for the future of our community and country at large.
We have learned so much about this project. Right now we are in process of going to schools, giving out lectures, and also we in our own homes we are trying to let our children know about the importance of the environment and how to keep it clean and safe for each and every one of us.
This marks the first phase of a management plan for the area. The project is also guided by a series of studies conducted for the area, including a reforestation scheme, a social impact assessment, a water resources management plan, and an historical change detection analysis.
This Nariva Swamp Restoration Project is in keeping with the principle of National Environmental Policy and Convention of Biodiversity, Climate Change and Diversification.
The aim is to restore and conserve the Nariva wetlands through the recognition of the services it provides as a carbon sink and a biodiverse ecosystem.
The EMA plays an important role in public education and awareness of the Nariva Swamp. These strategies take the form of institutional strengthening, training, employment, research initiative, public and school lectures, interviews, media releases, science posters, videos, and special publication.
We take it in a different approach by bringing persons in our community to our project site so they can be hands-on, so in the future they will be able to spread the word about the protection of the swamp and its environment.
The Nariva Swamp is an important national resource, especially for the surrounding communities. Its designation as an ESA provides opportunities for sustainable economic and human development for many years to come. The white-tailed sabrewing is the largest hummingbird in Tobago and is yet another environmentally sensitive species, designated by the EMA in 2005. It is about 12 centimeters long and weighs about 10 grams, or the same as about 10 paper clips. It is generally bright green with a dark blue throat and white streak that is said to resemble a mustache.
Well, the sabrewing have a distinctive feature, and that's the reason why they're called sabrewing first of all. And the primary feather P10 and P9 tend to be really broad, flat, and they're bent at an angle, and it gives you somewhat of a saber shape, and hence they're referred to as the sabrewings. 3 outer feathers on the tail are white, so there are a few other sabrewings that also has that feature, but the only sabre that we find here has that particular characteristic.
The sabrewing's scientific name is Campylopterus encipinis, which are Greek and Latin words that both mean bent wing. The scientific name is also the root of its nickname in Tobago, which is campi.
We're still hypothesizing as to what exactly is the function of the broadness of the saber. One of the reasons we're thinking it could be used as a sex selection. So the males with the broader saber seem to be more attractive to the females, and so they would tend to get the girls as opposed to the ones that have a narrower saber. They have a really high-pitched, sharp, threat kind of sound. The white-tailed saberwings are sexually dimorphic, meaning it's very easy to distinguish between the male and the female visibly. The males tend to be really brightly iridescent color, green on the upper back and in the lower belly, and has a bright blue throat and a white dot above the eye, whereas the female, she has a white line, it's called a white moustachial stripe underneath her eyes, and her belly isn't as solid green, it's speckled with grayish white.
There are only 2 places in the world that the white-tailed saberwing hummingbird can be found: on the Paria Peninsula in Venezuela and Tobago.
These birds are found in the northeastern part of Tobago, especially in the forested area. You have Coffee River Nature Retreat, you also have at Gilpin Trail, and you also have on the northeastern part with Louisdo and so on. You will see this bird only in the forest, not out in the grassland area.
Hurricane Flora in 1963 reduced the forest cover to by about 30 meters. It was a huge loss to the main ridge. Only the areas surrounding Bloody Bay on the far side of the rainforest did not have this impact, and it has taken about 30 years for the forest cover to come up to the level of what it was in 1963.
However, it was rediscovered by Richard French in 1974 and has since been recorded under the Red List of Threatened Species by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. It is important to note, however, that documented studies on the saberwing population before Hurricane Flora are not available. It is therefore difficult to assess how much the hurricane affected the population. The bird is thought to be flexible in where it selects its habitat, as they have been found in relatively mature montane forest above 280 meters, as well as in open areas such as clearings, abandoned plantations, and in regenerating forest less than 15 meters tall. The saberwing feeds on mainly nectar from undergrowth flowers. Male birds perch conspicuously and defend their territories aggressively against other hummingbirds. This large species is both fearless and inquisitive. Data collected for an EMA-funded research project, as well as findings from previous research, both indicate that the status of the saberwing population in Tobago is optimistic.
What we know is that the females tend to lay close to waterways, and we've seen them nesting in bamboo or even wild cocoa, in nests that might be about 8 to 10 meters above the water, in small nests with about 2 to 3 eggs for the most.
The forest reserve was made a forest reserve in 1765, purely for the preservation of water. And it has remained a reserve since that time. So the birds have been able to recover and proliferate in peace. Currently, the Department of Natural Resources and the Environment, the Forestry Division section of that department, is the group that is protecting the birds. And as far as I can see, they're doing an excellent job. The birds are on the return. We see a lot more sightings now. It seems that the groups of people or tourists going in there for bird watching has been kept a more reasonable amount, 10 or 12 in a group, which does allow the bird to show itself occasionally and not start moving its nest in other direction.
According to the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. Within the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, there are few reported cases of illegal logging and minimal habitat loss as a result of human activities. The reserve is also marketed as a unique ecotourism destination.
The birds play a very important role in ecotourism because 90% of our guests come here with a lifetime list of that bird, the white-tailed sabrewing.
Right when we got here, we saw the sabrewing almost right away, which was really thrilling. It's a super pretty bird.
I wasn't quite sure what it was at first. I needed to look in my book, and when I saw that it was the sabrewing, and then I got a good look at its iridescent front, it was just so impressive and beautiful. And I love that that the people here are trying to conserve this bird. I think that's great.
Continued management of the white-tailed sabrewing includes continuous monitoring of the birds. The data collected is essential for evaluating the effect of another hurricane on the distribution and population size of the species. Training of individuals to monitor sabrewings is also necessary to build local capacity, while both the EMA and the DNRE continue their education and awareness programs to conserve this unique species. The Aripo Savannas Strict Nature Reserve is another environmentally sensitive area, designated by the EMA in 2007. Although it is only about 18 square kilometers, or about the size of the southern city of San Fernando, its distinct biodiversity is no less remarkable than what may be found at Matura or Nariva. The Savannas is located within a roughly triangular area between Arima and Sangre Grande. In further testament to its uniqueness, this ESA is the largest remaining intact savanna-type habitat in Trinidad and Tobago. There are 3 distinctive vegetative communities in these savannas based on the structure of the vegetation and the composition of plant species. These are the marsh forest, the open savannas, and the palm marshes.
Marsh forests are the largest of the 3 plant communities that you find in the savannas, and they typically consist of forests that usually gets flooded for a certain period of time during the year. The savanna ecosystems are usually open formation or open plant formations that are dominated by sedges and grasses. Palm marshes are palm stands where the palms are really the dominant vegetation, and they overtop all the other vegetation at the site, and usually they get used by birds for food and as places to breed.
But birds aren't the only inhabitants of this protected area, as a great number of mammals, reptiles, amphibians and butterflies have been recorded in this ESA.
The Aripo Savannas is the home of about 60 orchids, which represents 1/3 of all the orchids found in Trinidad and Tobago. The Orchid Society is engaged in studying the life cycle of the Cytopodium parviflorum, which is endemic to the savannas. In August 2013, 300 seedlings were reintroduced into the savanna, which these plants were germinated in my nursery. And what we are attempting to do is actually to reintroduce plants in case the savannas are destroyed or damaged in such an extent that we would have to do artificial means of prolonging the lives of these orchids in the society.
Aripo Savannas is known for its rich history. And for instance, in 1930, the area was surveyed and boundary pillars were established. And in 1934, the wider area was declared the Longstretch Forest Reserve.
A few years later, the reserve was leased to the United States military for the establishment of a base called Fort Reed. It was part of probably the largest and busiest airfield during World War II. The US military constructed roads, buildings, culverts, and a bunker complex to the south of the reserve. The savannas has also had its share of unwanted attention, such as illegal logging before and after US military activities.
In the early 1960s, the Aripo Savanna area was subjected to quarrying activities both for sand and gravel, particularly the area close to the quarry side, the KP land area. And that went along for over 30 years, where quarrying was done on a regular basis to sustain the growing road demands in the country.
Strong public pressure brought a stop to quarrying, which had decimated the original palm and marsh forests in quarry areas.
In Aripo Savannas, you had a big area that was damaged in the past by quarrying activities. So the group saw it fit to do some remedial replanting exercises. And so we decided, well, since 1998, every year annually, we have been going into Aripo Savannas and replanting species that can only be found within Aripo Savannas.
There is evidence that some natural regeneration has also occurred since then. Today, the Aripo Savannas is faced with new challenges, the greatest of which is squatting, which itself has been linked to poaching and fires. To combat these bushfires, the EMA has facilitated fire management training to the local communities.
One of the greatest devastation of the savannas itself and the savannas ecosystem is that of indiscriminate fires. And in indiscriminate fires, we're talking about fires which are mostly man-made fires, either created by people, agricultural squatters in the area, compounded by hunters, and somewhat in most recent time the squatting community tend to clear pockets of lands within the savannas, and fire has been used as a tool to clear large areas of the savannas for those type of activities.
Shortly after its 2007 designation as an ESA, the management of the Aripo Savannas was advised by a stakeholder management committee. The committee is comprised of state agencies, research bodies, NGOs, and CBOs from the surrounding communities.
SOOKDEO began in 1998 to do some conservation work in Aripo Savannas. Well, the group was actually started with the idea to go in and help rehabilitate some of the areas, because we had about 6 people was in CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, and they used to go in Aripo Savannas and do work. And based out of their exposure to Aripo Savannas, they fell in love with the Aripo Savannas and decided that something had to be done in order to conserve the area.
An integrated management plan was developed by CANARI in 2009 after extensive public consultations. The main objectives of this plan are to protect the natural ecosystems and allow for their natural regeneration, provide opportunities for research related to natural history, and to provide environmental and natural science education. The management plan calls for protection of both the area and its watershed through regular patrols. Under the EMA's legal notice, it is illegal to hunt, trespass, cut vegetation, or build any type of structure within the Aripo Savannas strict nature reserve. According to the Environmental Management Act, one can be fined up to $100,000 and face imprisonment for up to 2 years if one commits an offense as outlined in the EM Act against an ESA or ESS. The EMA continues to fulfill its duty to educate the public about the value of the Aripo Savannas and how it can be safeguarded for generations to come. Strategies include public lectures, interviews, media releases, signs, posters, and special publications and events. The future of this beautiful and unique treasure depends on respecting its fragile ecosystems. Today, entry to the savannas is tightly controlled by the Forestry Division. This, among other restrictions, are the best tools to ensure that after thousands of years, the Aripo Savannas does not disappear in the blink of an eye.